So far, here it goes. So we're gonna go back. So when I was 16 years old, got my license. The first car I got was a 2001, I think, Subaru Outback, and that was an automatic. Had a little fun with that car, great gas mileage. After about a month, I blew that up. Had about 200 on the clock, freshly rebuilt, and I blew it up after a month. Apparently, I beat the balls off of it, and all the oil leaked out, so that happened. And so after that, I was saving up money. I was able to purchase my second car from a dealer down in New York. So I went down there, got the car. We looked at a few cars, so I went down there to get a Tiburon. That's what I originally went to grab. And they didn't have that. They sold it like the day before. So I test drove a Scion TC. It was an automatic, so I really didn't want automatic. So I test drove it anyways. And there was water in the trunk. And a few other things that was wrong with it, a few noises that we didn't like. So we were about to give up, and then we told him our budget, and he sent me to a car that, that's the car I ended up taking home, but I didn't want it. But it was a 2006 Volkswagen Passat. The color of it was disgusting, but it was a 6-speed manual. It was a 2.0 T. I bought that for about $5. I think it was $5. So I bought that. We test drove it. That was my first time ever driving a Standard. I learned how to drive a Standard on a test drive. So I bought that car, and then we took that home. So this is when the story really starts to begin of my Passat. So on the way home, my car, the shift's funny. Now, that was my first time ever driving a Standard, really, so you gotta understand, I didn't really know if there was something wrong with it or not. It just felt weird. But luckily enough, there was something wrong with it. When I get home, I realized I couldn't get into 4th, 5th, or 6th gear. None of those gears were working. So I drove like that for a little while. They're pretty pissed off, so we called the dealer. They wouldn't give it back. They wouldn't give me money back. So we ended up looking at it, and we figured it was a shift leakage, so we adjusted that, and it shifted pretty good. I'm driving it. Eventually, 2nd gear and 4th gear, neither of them will go into gear. Now, we adjusted a little bit more, but we couldn't get them. They wouldn't go into gear, period. You recording this?
Yeah.
Nice.
I pay rent here too. I'm allowed to be in the video, right?
Fair enough.
Okay, time to go.
Alright, so back to what I was talking about. So I drove around my shift linkage without 2nd and 4th gear for probably about 6 or 7 months. Now, gotta go back again. After about a month of owning my car, the master cylinder goes while I'm driving up a hill. It stops on a hill in the sketchiest spot it possibly could, because there's a sharp-ass corner where people were flying the entire time it was broken there. Now, the best part is my clutch wouldn't work, and my parking brake is electronic, and you need the clutch to turn it off. So the guy who towed it with the e-brake on, and it just dragged the tires. So we couldn't get it out of the road because we couldn't move it. So we eventually got that fixed. We fixed that in the dead of winter outside in like -degree weather. It was terrible. Absolutely awful. Now, I drove that for probably about a few more weeks until, what do we think was the next thing that broke?
Your pressure plate?
No, that was a long day. That's a long time down the road. My exhaust. I want to say it's my catalytic converter. Or my downpipe. My downpipe snapped. I don't know how. It must have been cracked already. But my downpipe broke, and it sounded like a diesel when I was driving down the road. I was just driving down the road, all of a sudden it just got loud as hell, just like that. And when we brought that to a shop to get fixed, that ended up costing $700 to get fixed. And that was a brand new OEM downpipe. It wasn't even like aftermarket, which would have been the cheaper route to go. So after I got that fixed, I had to get my car inspected, and we had to do new brakes. Go to do the brakes in the rear, and all the lug bolts are seized. And we ended up snapping a bunch of tools trying to get it off. So we took it to a shop, to a guy I knew at a shop. He went to go do it, couldn't get them off either. They tried everything to get those off. So we physically had to take a torch and basically essentially melt the lug bolts off. Now, after that was done, that really fucked up the whole rear end, like the spindles, the hubs, everything was all fucked. So that had to be replaced, all brand new. So that was about $1,000 in total, including the brakes and the new lug studs and stuff like that. So that took about a week to get fixed. Meanwhile, we took my car there. Me and Chris took my car there with no other way to get home, assuming it was going to get done that day. And it wasn't. So we had to call somebody to get a ride home because we couldn't go home that day. So after that, the next thing that broke was my motor mount. It snapped while I was driving. Now, I'm still not entirely sure how it broke. Now, we realized it was never hooked up the right way to begin with. There was like 6 washers on it. So that broke while I was driving, and the engine and transmission both twisted this way because the mount on the bottom of the transmission that was holding the engine up, that's the one that broke. So the engine and transmission twisted this way, which again snapped my brand new downpipe. Plus it did a lot of damage to the fans, so my fans had to get replaced. There was a couple other marks that it made, and a couple lines that got broke that were only a few bucks. That finally got fixed. Now this is all within like a couple months span. It's just kept breaking and breaking and breaking and breaking.
Volkswagen lights.
Yeah, that's Volkswagen. That's why I got another one, of course. So then, the next thing that breaks. There's so many things that broke. I'm just trying to figure out which one's next.
I feel like your pressure plate was next.
That was my clutch. But that was right before I got rid of it almost. That was only like 3,000 miles before I got rid of it. Alright, so the next thing that broke, I'm assuming it was my clutch. I can't think of anything else. My clutch went and messed up. My clutch was gone. Like, I don't have any pictures of it, but it was gone. There was nothing left of it. Now, this is an interesting story within itself because me and Chris were on the way home from my girlfriend's house, and the clutch went on. It was about 20 minutes away. It broke as soon as I left her house, so it was still about 20 minutes away from home. I was going about 50 miles an hour with no clutch, so I couldn't really take it out of gear. Now, to get that car home, I couldn't afford to get that car towed home. So what I did was I did a lot of illegal things to make the car to my house.
Down in Mexico?
Down in Mexico, yeah. Down in Mexico, blew a lot of stop signs. Now, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning at this point, so I mean, there wasn't a lot of people out, and I wouldn't do it unless I was completely and utterly, like, knew nothing was going to happen. But, so I ended up getting my car home that day. Now, at this point, my car was out for probably about 3 months, almost 4, give or take. So it was about 4 months I didn't have a car. That sucked. I finally got that fixed, and my uncle is the one who fixed it. And we finally got that all right. And this is when my shifting finally got fixed, because we realized when he took the trans out and was disconnecting the shift linkage cables that the one was so stretched out and worn out, it had so much slack in it. So we finally got that replaced. And then all that was put back together, and it finally shifted into second and fourth gear. Perfectly. No problems. Now, at this point, the car ran, this is about 8 months or so, and within an 8-month span. And there's a lot of little things that broke too that I'm probably forgetting. I haven't had the car for a little while. Now, the engine, I've never had an issue with the engine. It had 135, I think. 138 when I got rid of it. So 138,000. Engine ran fine. Didn't really have any problems with it there. But everything else broke. But, so I put the car up for trade. Had it up for trade for a while, didn't really get anything. And then a local person messaged me and asked me if he wanted to trade. So we test drove each other's cars. We met up, test drove each other's cars. And that's this car that you're looking at now, which is the Mark IV GTI, the VR6. So we test drove each other's cars. We decided, yeah, we'll go ahead and do it. So at this point, my car, nothing has been wrong for a long time. I don't even think my check engine light was on at this point.
That's weird.
My check engine light's been out for about a month. And then the day we went to go trade, we traded. We got the title and transfer place, the title and tag place. We were doing the transfer. We had the paperwork all done for the most part. And he had to go, so he left. He took the car that we just traded. He took my Passat. Now, as he's leaving, he stalls it because the electronic parking brake he forgot about, so he stalled it. And when he turned the car back on, the car had a huge rod knock and lifter tick. which was not good. I didn't know much mechanically about cars then, but we didn't know what it was. So he takes the car, he drives it, and the way he explained it to me, he was driving, got on it, and then it dropped to 0 pounds of boost, and the car shut off. So after the car shuts off, he calls me, he sends me a text, and I come meet him over there in this. We come over there, we don't know what's wrong. We finally get the car started. We drive it a little bit, it dies again, it won't hit boost. We ended up getting the car almost to AutoZone where we were taking to get the check engine light right, because check engine light came back on. We were trying to see what was wrong. So we took that, we put the check in, we scanned it, and a shit ton of codes came up. Now, months went by, not months, all right, a couple weeks went by. He messaged me and sent me pictures of the engine that they tore apart. They tore apart the Passat just to figure out what was wrong with it, and a bunch of shit went wrong. The valves were bent, the timing belt snapped, one of the pistons cracked.
One of the camshafts was brand new.
Yeah, but that's the next story. So all those parts, I'm assuming the timing belt snapped, that's what caused all that. But the timing belt blew, and as he's taking it apart, we're messaging each other. He doesn't think it's my fault, yada, 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 and we're okay. We're on terms. We're okay. We're on speaking terms. And then he messages me, sends me a picture of the engine bay and says, listen, a lot of the parts in the engine were replaced. And I think you knew that this was going to happen. There's a couple bolts missing from inside the engine that they didn't know. Now, one of the cams was replaced. Two of the pistons were replaced, and the turbo was replaced. Before me, I didn't have the car when this happened. Now, I didn't do any of that work, but he thinks I did, so he thought I knew it was going to blow up. So he gets very agitated at me. And, months go by before I get another message from him, and he posted a picture, or he posted something on Facebook about this car, because I did something to it. I plastic it. This car used to be purple. I plastic dipped it, and he made a comment on it over Facebook about, I don't even remember what it was, but he was just commenting, talking shit about that. So I commented, I'm like, are you talking about my car? He says, yes, I am. I said, what's the problem? And he pretty much explains how I blew up his car, and he was very pissed off. So after all that fighting, all that argument, I'm finally here today with the car that I have now. After all of that, and this car is not giving me too many problems besides right now. It's still not inspected. On my channel, I posted a video not too long ago of why my car failed because of the tires. Now, I took it to another shop, and they found a lot more problems wrong with it. Axles are leaking. I don't have a rear mirror, which I didn't think was illegal because I have both my other mirrors, but apparently it is. So those are illegal. My horn doesn't work. One of my side markers is out. So this is what I'm left with today. That's it today. Now, if I can go back, I'll put a picture up of what it looked like when I first originally got it. And when I got it, it was stock suspension, stock wheels. The front end was messed up. And the taillights were spray painted black. They were spray painted black. So we took the sandpaper and cleaned those up, and the exhaust was absolutely gone. And that broke on this car. The exhaust snapped on this car because it rotted out. So after that broke, so this is what the car looks like today. If I can find a picture, I'll put it up on the screen. But yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and subscribe, like.